welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. We are exploring the end of the book that we've been reading. We have done some fantastic work in reading this book and hopefully learning more about what reading entails and how it's different from interpretation. Reading is different from interpretation, and how that reflects how philosophy is different than what people think philosophy is. Philosophy is taken to be your own personal philosophy. What do you make of things? What's your theory about everything? What's your philosophy on this or that? When philosophy is actually using our own ousia and logos, our own mind and understanding, to reflect on the nature of mind and understanding, to perfect our highest experiences of mind and understanding. That's called wisdom. And that experience is, of course, divine luminosity, experienced as beauty itself, so we fall in love with it. So philos, love, wisdom, that peak experience of mind, along with its understanding. Now, what we've been seeing is that ain't enough. Or rather, that love of wisdom is followed by a desire to get back to that experience it in greater depth, fully integrate that experience in whatever way we're able to. That's philosophy. It's not just loving it from a distance, it's loving it with a desire for more perfect union and integration with it. Make sense? Now, if it was only that easy, because we also have a kind of negative force, if that development is a development through the logos, understanding, reasoning, reading, kind of books we need to read, then there's a counter force that opposes reading, that opposes understanding, that opposes the art of dialectic to structure our thinking and understanding and conversation. That opposition is the pathologos, which is a kind of diminished reflection of those ideals, putting us into a certain state of mind that isn't ideal, but it's familiar. It's accepted within the family clan in the house that you were stuck in your childhood. It might be accepted within your social groups or church groups, but it's a limited state of mind, causing a limited kind of functioning that we call interpretation. So interpretation is the functioning from belief. And of course, while our goal is to seek the knowing and functioning, ideal functioning of self, there is its complementary, or not complementary, its opposing false image of the self that is the root cause of our problems. So all of that we've been nailing down. Recently, we've been nailing down how to understand where the person we are talking to is at within that hierarchy of stages of development. Understanding the principles, why it can be difficult to talk to some people, how to recognize when they're in their B state of mind, their blocked state of mind. What tells can we look for? What sort of things do people say and do that might indicate to us that they are not in an open, curious, genuine state, but they are in their defend the family clan, injustice state of mind? Now, we can call it the injustice state of mind because this is the root of all human problems. A defense, a loyalty, a savage, violent defense and loyalty of our own personal beliefs, and spending our lives trying to justify our beliefs and the associated way of being instead of seeking to learn higher, greater states of being. So, how do we recognize when someone is in a block state? And how do they function when they're in a block state? And what should we do when they are? That's what we've been exploring. We have also been asked by Socrates to create a map of the different kinds of interpretation that people can engage in. One kind of interpretation is to completely reject the logos, reject understanding, to completely defend your own pathologos or beliefs. Complete rejection of the logos and introducing your own pathologos into the conversation or into the text you're reading, or into the moment you're trying to perceive accurately as a person. Offering an alternative to what you're seeing, offering your beliefs as an alternative. Oh, that's interesting. I'm acknowledging that there's something different there, but here's what I think is better. My own beliefs. Adapting the logos to the pathologos. Okay, I'll take a little piece of that truth or understanding, and I'll just use it as to patch up my coat of beliefs. Patchwork model. Trying to unify the two. Maybe I can keep my old family beliefs, my false beliefs about myself that are the cause of my problems, and also learn at the same time. But what we are learning is that's not possible. You can't carry a false idea of yourself while simultaneously knowing yourself as mind or the self. They are incommensurate, incompatible ideas. So these are why they are blocks. And finally, from trying to keep them both, unify them, save them, to accepting the logos and rejecting pathologos interpretations, the opposite of the worst kind of interpretation, rejecting the logos. You reject the pathologos and accept the logos. We looked at last time. Jesus had an insight into what's the same within their traditions. Both of their traditions is a seeking of the self as the ultimate goal. We can personify that highest goal with Zeus, the highest god. Now we have been puzzling over the fact that within this idea of Zeus there is Uranos and Kronos, possibly a knowing of Zeus and a functioning of Zeus, because Kronos has been called the cause of our greatest state of mind, or the paradigm for reality, that God looks to this paradigm, his own mind, as the map and model of reality, and uses that model to create the physical world. So while we seek to understand and know the self, that makes us the same, we seek to verify our learning in our own direct experiences. You experience things as states of mind. Ousia, the capacity to turn around and know yourself as mind. Aphrodite is the goddess that personifies that principle. We do this by reading. Our method is reading. Now what we've been seeing is that there are certain texts we do read, because there are millions and millions of books written by millions and millions of jabronis out there. How do we know what book to spend our time reading? Those that are complete and intelligible. Intelligible meaning reflecting this principle of the logos, and complete meaning we don't have to add anything to it or leave anything out. There's no room to project our pathologos beliefs. That's that principle, Apollo. If we do all of this, we can end up, from our reading, developing the art of the dialectic. That's the art we're here to master. Hermes. Therefore, what the question Jesus asked is, what role do the gods play for philosophers? We follow the anagogic triad of Apollo, Aphrodite, and Hermes to reach Zeus. And notice, this is itself a dialectic. The first goal, self itself, to know self itself. How do you define the self definition in relation to itself? That's the self logos. That's the principle of the logos that we've been following. How does self function or demonstrate itself? Self to others, self and other together, self and other, the principle of mind, experienced as beauty or Aphrodite. How do we function from our states of mind to other things, like reading texts, like dialogues with our friends, like understanding our dreams? Well, that's following Apollo, learning the logos. And the mastery of that, the best way we can relate to our friends, our dreams, our texts, our goals, Hermes. So that's a movement from the division to the key idea that affects all of those divisions. That's the movement from division to conclusion. Hermes. Now, if that's what we are supposed to be doing, if that's the human journey, and that's what's the same between Socrates and Jesus, its distortion, we could look at all of the opposites of each of these to understand the opposite of learning, the opposite of spiritual development being blocked. So if the first term is the self-logos in the positive, well, we can infer, we can hypothesize. The first term, the cause of our interpretation, is our pathologos idea of ourselves. That pathologos demonstrates itself not in Ousia or Aphrodite, but in our B state, that blocked state of mind. And we see some tells when Jesus says, oh, that's interesting, I'll think about that later, putting it off. Oh, if I follow that line of questioning, it might lead to some conclusions I don't like. Jumping ahead. Oh, yes, I'm the sort of person who wonders about those sorts of things. Are you that sort of person? Are you telling a story about yourself, or are you doing it? Little tells that you might be in that state of mind. And of course, there are others. You can collect your own as you learn. How does that state of mind function other to other? Division. Well, we see Jesus appealing to him leading the dialectic instead of the dialectician, imitating the art, using beliefs as facts, appealing to clan identity. I am the zealot, you are a different team, us versus them. Instead of following the logos to understanding truth and insight, trying to use conversation to prove or justify the already held beliefs, or you're already identified with or already held ways of being. To prove and justify your beliefs and way of being. That's how you do function in your state of mind that's blocked. Of course, this is the nature of human savagery, human ignorance. It's this functioning that is the cause of our problems. Well, the cause is, of course, the pathologos. The next level of cause is the state of mind. The activities that humans engage in that are negative and destructive is this. But another way of understanding your division is, what do you reject? This is what you do, what do you not do? Or you reject the dialectic. I don't like your method, says Jesus. Our methods are different. Mine is following my heart and feelings, and your method is strange to me. Rejecting definitions. All of the defined terms we have made, we have come to together in the dialectic. Earlier in the dialogue, Jesus is rejecting. Specifically, our definition of the gods. Gods are just representations of these forces that we can understand and move through. No, gods are literal. I've rejected what we've already defined. He's rejecting the one with the art leading the dialogue. Let me ask you questions. Let me just tell you what to, well, let me lead the dialogue, even though he has no art. Rejecting reasoning. Here are my beliefs. Here are my conclusion. That's it. Take it or leave it. Fight me. This is what I think. Fight me, bro. Rejecting reasoning and rejecting the reasoning they've already gone through. Rejecting their prior conclusions. So we said, well, if there's a whole list of things you reject, maybe we could order them within a dialectic. If that's understanding, if understanding requires ordering within this dialectic pattern, because it's the power and structure of the logos, then you could take all of these rejections and find a way of ordering them. That's for you. You can have fun. Hooray for you.
It makes sense.
I do make sense.
Everybody should love sluts. I love sluts.
That's also a good point. Equally so, can you arrange what you the negative functioning that they do in a dialectic as well? And is one, do they relate to each other? Have fun. So, negative definition, the pathologos, idea of self and reality. Negative state of mind, which has its tells. The negative function we see playing out in the dialogue. And what does the conclusion? Is that the dialectic D-D-D-C? Didic? Didic. Double D-dic. Yes.
Spit on me.
Calm down, Emma.
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
I'm sorry. You're doing very well, Emma.
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
We would scoop the moon in the cup for you. Conclusion. How does this kind of functioning end? Always division and always conflict. Because that's the definition of belief. That's how it functions. It's always a belief is an accepted limit to be a part of the team. You wear the magic Mormon underpants.
Gooners.
And in opposition to freedom. Or part in opposition to the whole, etc., for all of those pairs. Always conflict. Therefore, understanding this simple dialectic, if the logos is, if the logos isn't, or the pathologos, then we can understand what Jesus and Socrates and all people who are seeking development do. We could even represent it with 4 gods and make it super simple. And we can also understand all human problems, including all of the division and conflict we face as a species. All of the wars, all of the inequality, all of the injustice, all of the punishment as a way of solving problems, all of that shit is simply this side in opposition to this side. These 4 here. What do Republicans do? Appeal to clan identity. What do? Blow up things, destroy things, steal things, rape things, murder things. Why do they justify it? Because we are the good guys and they are the bad guys. You either support the war or you hate America. Same thing for religion, same thing for capitalists. And those are the ones who have the power and rulership of our current society. That's why we are living in a state of division and conflict. All we have to do as individuals and as a species is recognize these 4 and its positive opposite. And the kind of division and conflict that results from this dialectic, we are ranking from complete pathologos, offering alternatives, adapting the logos to the pathologos, trying to unify them together Sounds like conclusion. Trying to unify them together. And finally, stepping out of that problem to the ideal. Rejecting the pathologos and accepting the logos. So, that's where we are. And this is how Socrates and Jesus are the same. It's this understanding of human problems or blocks and how they function in conversations that we got from using our map to understand Jesus's problem and also the principles of problems. When someone is asked to relate to a state of mind beyond their level, they may retreat to their fourth hypothesis beliefs that reject third hypothesis logos. So the fourth and third represent the logos and pathologos, because they're being asked to relate to a hypothesis beyond where they're at. Socrates' response to this, previously he's been yes-ending, like Jesus when he has been reflecting in a genuine way in his A state of mind. Socrates says, yes, that is a good idea, or I'm picking out one of the good ideas you've shared and we're going to build on that. That's called yes and. But instead of yes and, he says no this. So Socrates was able to recognize that Jesus was in B state, block state. He was even able to anticipate, hey, many people will consider this heresy. You have to be very intelligent to accept this. I rarely share it because it often brings scorn. So he anticipated a likely counterattack, B state. He was able, therefore we can infer that he must have been able to identify where Jesus was at on the hypotheses. Of course, necessary, because if you're leading the conversation, you're at this stage, well, let's take you to the next stage. That's how you would lead the conversation as an artist or a dialectician. Artisan? When Jesus was triggered, Socrates' response was to reject the premise. No. You've just done a gish gallop. You've just said, this is what I believe. This is the conclusion. This is my, not reasoning, but these are my beliefs as to why it is the case. And therefore, this is the conclusion. What do you say about that? No, we reject all of those things, all of those steps that you took on your own without asking questions. I reject your premise or framing. No, you're not the one leading the conversation, rejecting its leadership. Not yes ending, but no, this. No, not what you said. This is the issue. This was the key term that was actually the cause of the division. You forgetting that we defined gods in a different way. As a result, he brings back and re-summarizes or quickly re-reasons the previous understandings. Remember how we said the gods were actually this? They weren't objects of belief. They were personifications of metaphysical principles of reality and mind, and our soul's journey. Hey, did we also say that if God creates, there has to be a model? That model has to be understandable and contain within it everything that will unfold. That's the logos inherent in ousia. By the way, did we point out that even your followers use the word logos, like the opening of John? By the way, did we also understand and conclude together that every cause everything or experience has its cause? Therefore, there has to be a cause of that we called Chronos. And that principle would mean that there's also a cause of that called Uranos. Therefore, our division or our conflict wasn't that we believe different things, it's that we have different definitions of the term God. One is literal, that is the cause of human stupidity. What, are you, an idiot?
How can you be this stupid? How is it legal? How is it legal?
How's it legal you can be this stupid? and one, of course, is rational. One is always going to lead to conflict. Well, I believe this and you believe that, and there's no way of proving anything because it's all just pretend, make-em-ups, bullshit. Let's just beat each other up, or murder each other, or genocide your people. One unifies. We can all participate in understanding. We can all participate in truth. We can all go through these stages of development. So, uses those established reasoned conclusions and definitions to conclude. Therefore, we are the same. Only sometimes you might forget, because of your beliefs from childhood, religious beliefs from childhood, Jesus, you might forget that gods are not literal. That's just some bullshit some preacher used to manipulate you from their own ignorance, or your parents, or political figures. So that's how we respond. Reject the framing, reject the leadership, don't yes and, but point to the actual issue, quickly re-summarize or re-reason the understanding and conclusions, and put them all together to finally conclude this is the issue. Very artful functioning of Socrates, that we can be like ourselves. So that's where we are in the text. What does Jesus have to say about this? Well, actually, Jesus then points out, hey, if that was a kind of counterattack or reinterpretation, we've been asked to take all of the kinds of interpreters and arrange them within a hierarchy. But I had this great insight that the nature of interpretation is when you reject the logos, you say there's something wrong with the work you're reading, and instead try to introduce your pathologos. And the worst kind, the lowest on the list, or highest on the list if you want to look at it that way, is those that completely introduce their pathologos and reject the logos. And how did he come to this insight? Because he realized we were doing the opposite. What made us the same was we seek the self-logos. Therefore, if this is logos, to seek the self-logos, then our problems are the pathologos. Seeking the logos, verified an experience that we get through reading, and of course, culminating in the dialectic. Aphrodite, Apollo, Hermes, racing us to Zeus. Keeping in mind, we are wondering if to know the self, is that Uranus and its functioning Chronos? So do Chronos and Uranus live within Zeus? That's our puzzle. So let's keep reading.
The more holes, the better.
Good point, Emma.
We definitely are not born with a starter kit of beliefs, buddy. Religion is shoved into children's brains forcibly through indoctrination, and if it's any kind of fundamentalism, it's essentially child abuse. Even if a kid was to come to this conclusion totally out of their own accord, that there is a divine entity that created everything, it sure as fuck wouldn't be the malicious sociopathic god that you assholes worship.
It's a long sound drop.
Well, that's not true because I don't think so.
And interesting counter.
You just attacked my person. You just harmed my body.
So that's where we are. Jesus says, we have been searching to understand the mystery of the nature and kinds of interpretation. And I do think I've come to a solution to our problem. We have identified many kinds of interpretation and named each of their kinds. And while that has been important to do, it fails to present them hierarchically. and especially identify which would be on top of them all and which would be the lowest of them all. I just saw a solution to the riddle. Socrates drops that key word. Oh, you seem to be basking in the glory and of the answer and smiling. So we've been wondering earlier, what does the role of smiling play within our reading, within the Oxherding pictures, within our development of soul? Please share it before you lose it. Well, Socrates, it's not the kind of thing you can lose or forget. Is it not true that what we have been calling your Hellenic philosophy and my own teachings are primarily about the state of self? Oneself, good self, Zeus, which is to understand that sacred source through the Logos. Understanding, Apollo. Reading, where we learn the Logos, Apollo. Yet don't we also add the need for presenting a way of to confirm direct experience, ousia, state of mind, Aphrodite? Yes, that is true. And if our work is complete, it can stand alone. That's why half of the people who pop into the stream say, hey, don't read that, read this book that I like. Read Aristotle or Nietzsche or this professor that I like. No, because that's just going to reflect his own hypotheses level of development, his own level of insight and understanding, and his own pathologos interpretations. If we were his doctor and he were paying us for our time, we might read his work so we can examine his logos to identify his stage of development and maybe get clues about his problem so we can then ask him questions so he can discover his problem. It's not for us. It's not our job to see his problem, it's his. But what we want to do, because we're not getting paid by that guy to be his therapist, what we are doing is reading a book that is complete and can stand alone. That's why we read Socrates, Balboa translation, and Pierre Grimes. And it can exist without the need for interpretation. You don't have to do the work of fixing the garbage. Now, that's very different from what you do at college. Here is some book. Here's Kant. Read Kant. Why? I don't know. Is it true? If you want it to be. What does that mean? I don't know. Don't know what they're talking about. This could get me on the Joe Rogan podcast. Listen, Joe. Those education systems, they don't know what they're talking about. They're brainwashing our children. And he'll say,
I don't want to eat a monkey.
He doesn't want to eat a monkey because
I don't want to eat a monkey.
That's the only thing I have of Joe on my soundboard.
She's a moron. She's a bonked on the head individual, BHM.
You're a little bitch ass baby.
Calm down. But the solution isn't we should defund education and put children into slave labor camps at a younger age. As Joe Rogan's Epstein class guests all say, the Joe Rogan experience has become the Epstein experience. Of course, easy to see. 5-10 years ago. It's interesting because when he started, I remember pointing out to the author of this book, actually, he seems to be introducing a way of reflecting on ideas and spiritual experiences he's had that could have a positive influence on our society. Of course, he didn't. He didn't address his problems. He didn't develop understanding of his peak experience. So he's become a, well, very easy to see. He was a fascist, conservative, hates people different than him, hates women, mouthpiece for the fascists, for ICE, for death camps, the Epstein class, propagandist. Some of us saw it many years ago on the horizon. Well, happening slowly. There you go. That's Joe.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
First you're saying the F word or whatever you said. Now the tone is completely out of control.
Sorry about my out of control tone.
Can't you just engage with anything in a way that's like meaningful ever? Like, it's just boring, I think, is the problem.
Sorry, I'll be better.
Cool as a cute.
So, that's why we read this. It's a complete work without any need for interpretation. Why did I go on a tangent talking about Joe Rogan? We must conclude that the work is self-sufficient, complete, and intelligible in itself. It would not need any interpretation beyond its own understanding of our elements of theology, the gods. However, if there are any weaknesses in our theology, then the correction would add to its explanation and not be an interpretation. So we're not rejecting the Logos, we might be correcting something here or there, or adding something, as we are doing to maybe the hypothesis, the first hypothesis. Is there a Uranos and Kranos expression of it? And the mysterious extra question we got last time, if the as he says here, the cause of the Logos or paradigm within the second hypothesis, we call that cause Chronos. Therefore, cause of mind, Chronos, self. However, by that same reasoning, even that must have a cause, which we call Uranos, giving us the idea that maybe we can add to the complete and intelligible work of Parmenides a distinction between the model and activity of self, the knowing and showing of self. Would that be an extra hypothesis? Those are the gods, the personification and celebration of these forces and causes. The ultimate cause of all that is, we say, is the one or the good. Your followers even recognize that, so we are in agreement. So that brought us to spammer.
I'm a human. I don't listen to robots.
You're a spammer.
You don't talk to me, you robot. Shut up.
Shut up, robot.
Absolutely gooped.
You're goop.
First you're saying the F.
Oh my fuck.
Oh my fuck, you're a spammer.
It's a rug pull.
It's a rug pull.
I don't know if you know this, but like weird dudes exist everywhere.
And you're a weird dude existing everywhere.
Worse than slop. Sludge.
Sludge. That's what you are.
This is like even worse than AI sludge somehow.
It's worse than AI sludge somehow.
You have the brain of a child.
You've got a brain of a child. So, we say that ultimate cause, Uranos, is the one or the good. Meaning, we've come to an idea that perhaps if Uranos can be understood as the one or the good, and the puzzle that we've been addressing as we've been reading, perhaps also the true, hitting the three forces within our soul, the three motivating aspects or forces or desires within our soul, to bring things into a one in understanding, to seek the good for ourselves internally, and to outwardly seek the truth in our outward functioning. One, the good, the true. So if the basketball teams of Logos, whole and part, same and different, have the captain of oneness, the coach would be the one. Therefore, we can talk about the aspects of understanding, whole and part, same and different, the duads, as the members of that team. The second hypothesis, you experience them as a oneness, as a whole, as the model, as the paradigm. So there's the captain of the team, Mr. Oneness, that's the LeBron James. And of course the coach, even the cause of that, the one. Although we're saying that there is a cause between the one and the oneness, some activity of self that causes it, chronos. Same thing for those monads, beauty, justice, excellence. Captain is goodness, coach is good, and the triad, lesser, greater, ultimate, false, true, truth. Copy, model, principle, reflections of true. So the captain would be truth and the coach would be true. So those are the it's a handy way, analogy there to remember the aspects of understanding. Everything you understand fits into those three basketball teams. Experience, everything you experience. Existence, everything that exists has to use those Lego pieces. But what's interesting is Socrates is calling the first cause, the ultimate cause, the one and the good, or the good. Those are two fundamental different things. Well, they're the same in that the one is also the good, but those ideas are different. Aspects are different. Leading us to ask the question, is there even a term beyond Uranus? That's a new question that's come to light for us. What would it be? Is it self? Is it a different kind of self than the self that we've put here? Is it logos? Does the logo self live up here? And the knowing and showing of self, the knowing and showing of mind, it's distorted imitation in belief and materialism. Don't know. Are possibilities. We have fun. And I press the fun button.
Imagine people. Where's the door? Wonder, dude.
Have fun. So, for Socrates, how do we use the gods? We have to say that beauty itself exists. Oh, Jesus was trying to solve the puzzle of interpretation, wasn't he? Right, so let's go back to Socrates. Okay, so how do we use the gods as philosophers? Socrates says, well, I need to say that beauty exists. There has to be this beauty that we can love and seek and apprehend. If you don't think the One Piece exists, how can you become king of the pirates? How can you go on the quest for the One Piece? So I've got to say that beauty exists and has a vast power. It's an overwhelming experience of beauty that drives those who catch a glimpse of it to do what they can to gain a more full and complete vision of her. As you know, wisdom is the most beautiful of existence, things that exist. So that philosophers are called lovers of wisdom. To pursue her, they need the arts linked to Apollo. So Aphrodite exists and we want her. We need the arts tied to Apollo. That's why we read what we read. Since he represents the powers that perfect and convert those attracted to harmony to reach intellectual truth. And the light of that luminosity resides there. Remember, it's an experience. It's a trip. It's a return. It's a remembering. But it's something you experience. It's not just a theory, dusty academic thing for dusty old academics in their ivory tower. Yes, look at this text. Apparently beauty exists. What an interesting idea. No, go there. Go to the party. Check it out. With Steve Brawl.
These absolute dullards, borderline chimps, who want to kiss a fox.
So, Apollo's symbols are music because harmony is most readily seen through her inspired creations. So we see a harmony or a rational order that comes together in a beautiful experience with music, easy to see, or with beautiful people sometimes. But we need to make the jump. Well, what's the cause of that? Is that rational harmony reflecting of a higher rational harmony that we can follow to reach beauty itself? Hermes has from the earliest of times been called the supplier of philosophy and elevates those souls akin to him. So we want to be elevated, we want to be like Hermes. Hermes is the dialectic, so we want to do the dialectic, think through the dialectic, function to the dialectic, practice the dialectic, especially on your dreams, as much as we can to make ourselves ready, uppies, oh, not uppies, to get in that glass elevator and fly to the top. But not with Willy Wonka, with
I've been a bad little girl.
Hermes.
Unbelievable sluts these days.
It's a total shit show.
Anything for a click.
No matter how stupid or demented or misleading.
We get lots of clicks and we make the funny sound drops. Okay. So, Hermes elevates those souls like us, maybe, akin to him, but unless they include in their study the dialectic, the power of the logos, they will utterly fail. Utterly fail. So it doesn't sound like it's an option. But I like Buddhism. Well, do you have the dialectic? No. Then you'll fail. Sorry, you'll fail. But I like Taoism. But I like my magic Mormon underpants.
Gooners.
And soaking.
Queen of gooning.
I want to be the queen of gooning.
Gooners.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
So disgusted. Well, if you don't have the dialectic, doesn't matter how magic your underpants are, you will fail. Fail at what? Fail at achieving the passage from that brilliant light of being to the good itself. Zeus or Uranus. Thus, we can say in my philosophical journey, I pay heed to Aphrodite, Apollo, and Hermes. That's how we understand the gods. That's how we use the gods. We read Apollo. We bring it all together in our own states of mind, Aphrodite, leading to the greatest experience of beauty, Aphrodite. And we use the dialectic Hermes to go beyond that great peak experience to the good. And we could call the good Zeus. And we wonder if it has two parts, Kronos and Uranus as well. That's how we use the gods. What they're for. Hooray. I thought the gods were to say, my god is better than your god, and then we have to kill you and take your shit. For your oil. Or your gold. Because of the Epstein satanic death cult billionaire class. No, they're principles. Very beautifully said. Why, thank you. But I still wonder if you believe they are gods. I believe you will say that not likely in the way I think of a god. I imagine for all that you will say they merely represent forces or powers that be and that they exist eternally doing what they do. Eternal forces or powers, always doing what they do. Dems be the gods. Socrates says, yes, to that Jesus. You have seen what we call the elements of theology. Those principles or forces or powers. And our philosophy expresses that vision in a way that preserves its integrity and truth. And then Jesus says, well, I saw something about how we can arrange the interpretations. Again, bringing back the self, the experience, and understanding. Socrates says that's why we read the books that we read. They are sufficient, self-sufficient, complete, intelligible on their own. They don't need interpretation. Which means if you do start interpreting, you can take notes, especially if you read with a friend, and that can be clues to solve your greatest puzzle, your pathologos. So it's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win. Win-win-win-win-win. It's a win-win. It's a win-win-win.
Win-win-win. We always be winning.
All checks out.
The more holes, the better.
Although we can add to the tradition. And if you can't add anything more, then it would be a complete work. So if a work needs an interpretation, or is incomplete, and needs something to be added, ignored, or rejected, if a work needs an interpretation, it is incomplete. So, it's another way we can, whoops.
How can you be this stupid? How is it legal? How is it legal?
I was illegally stupid in having the wrong screen up. Right, so another way we can answer people who come in and say, hey, you should stop doing what you're doing. Read the book I like. Read Aristotle. Read Nietzsche. Read Professor Bill from my college. We will say, one way of answering is saying, hang on a second, we're not reading those because they are incomplete works and they would need interpretation. Something would have to be added, ignored, or rejected. Therefore, it is an Apollo for us. It's not where we learn the logos. Our work does not need any interpretation. Says Jesus, the lowest member of that tribe and interpreters would introduce their own pathologos to a work. So, he's saying the lowest interpreter. So he's using this system. Rejecting the new and introducing pathologos. Kind of interpretation. Which actually better reflects the hypotheses, because to reject the logos, similar to the fifth hypothesis, materialists who reject our ability to participate in mind. Reality is incomplete. We are stupid. We are ants. We are just dots. To introduce your own alternative beliefs would be fourth hypothesis. Yeah, there is meaning, but it's being a Christian. It's being a Mormon. It's being a Jew. It's being a Muslim. To take a piece is a kind of functioning. Only you're taking a piece of the new, the logos, as a patch on the coat of the old. To try and unify the two together is kind of like the second hypothesis, because it is pure unification. Isn't that interesting? So even the interpretations reflect these hypotheses. Try and unify like true unification. To do some work, only you're doing a patchwork kind of work. You're relating to the new to the old, not as true dialectic, which uses the new, relates it to the old in a way that purifies our problems. It's similar, but different. It takes the new and it adds it to the old. Kind of work happening there, like the third Offering your own alternative beliefs is very much the fourth hypothesis, which is where beliefs live. And of course, rejecting is very much like the fifth, because it's the activity of believers that the activity of believers that reject our ability to participate in mind and self. The people who say it's all woo-woo or hippy-dippy, it's all crap. And the reason is because of their belief, and usually an influence of religious beliefs on those people and their upbringing. If these are the guys talking about God, then God doesn't exist. Sure, but if Trump talks about justice, just because his idea of justice is bad doesn't mean there's no justice. You have to undo the effects of your childhood beliefs before you are free to make this movement. That's midwifery. So, every day we're getting closer to an understanding of how we can use the hypotheses and the dialectic as the map to do our own version for interpretation. Rejecting the logos, offering your beliefs, doing some work to patch the new to the old, trying to unify the new and the old. All of those are negative, all of those are interpretations, and the ideal that sits atop, again, the structure of the dialectic, structure of the hypotheses, that is non-interpretation. And we've even seen that in the text there are those that reject all of those as well. So we can even pad it out to include those that reject the rejectors, or those that reject the interpreters, so a kind of negative hypotheses. And we've even been talking about what it would mean to be the ideal, the new class of philosophers. Look at how much work we've done. See how smart we are? All those colors are indications of how smart you are. Look at that. How pretty. There is someone with a leaf blower. I have to close my window. Be right. All right, so the lowest members of the tribe of interpreters would introduce their own pathologos. Then we have finished our work. Meaning, Socrates is giving us a bit of a clue. How do we finish the reading of this book? It would require you finishing that map of interpreters. We have described all the kinds of interpreters and named them. We share much together, but there is still something that sets us apart, and it is this that I still wish to discuss with you.
It's a win-win.
What is it?
Debate dweeb.
Hey.
We definitely are not born. We definitely are not.
Wait. That's supposed to drop something else.
It's better to hum in the sink than to sink in the cum.
Oh my goodness. Is that true?
I'm too pure.
Well, don't ask Emma then.
From the ground efforts started with a lot of people that didn't feel like they could do anything about it.
Honestly, on the real, I say stuff like that because I'm cool.
Right. Right, enough. Soundboard. Let's go. We share much together, but there is something that sets us apart, and it is this that I still wish to discuss with you. No higher purpose can there be than to discuss what might separate us, says Jesus. Let's bring back our dudes. Here they are. Good it is that we can discuss this, because I wonder if we have different views of the very nature of God. I wonder if your idea of God is a kind of spiritual force that guides certain people through history. Right? Sound like it might be the case? A lot of people, the Abrahamic religions consider their God to be some spiritual force that plays out through history, doing things in time, that wants your team to be the team in charge. The Jews think the Jews need to be in charge, and that's the highest idea of God. The Christians think that America needs to be a Christian, whatever. The Muslims think they need to be in charge. All of their gods justify why they should be in charge. Play and explain the historical events of the world that their people have gone through as the influence of that spiritual entity. It's history doing God. Interesting? I think it's interesting.
I'm Joy Max. Okay, and if I log you because I'm Joy Maxing so hard, that just sounds like your cortisol levels are spiking for no reason.
Don't spike your cortisol levels for no reason. What does Jesus say about this? The God I speak of is a creator God. Doesn't sound like he likes the idea. A God of my people. Our God is necessary to overcome the power of evil that is spawned by the evil one, Satan. Now, isn't that interesting? Even though he's gone through a lot about understanding the pathologos and the logos and the need for the dialectic or Apollo and Hermes, still his root beliefs overpower. He still thinks there's such a thing as Satan. We've even gone through the dialectic on how that's just a bullshit way of thinking that justifies violence and abuse through the idea of punishment. You can't reason with Satan and his followers who are evil. You can just kill them, punish them for their evil crimes, punish women for sin, punish other races for etc., etc. But even though he's still telling us this is the essence of Abrahamic religions, you need God to overcome the power of evil. This is why religion is a sickness. Other people are not just the same as you, going through the movement of development from pathologos beliefs to logos understanding. No, those ones are the bad guys. You have to murder them. I think the latest death count in that all-girls school that America and Israel bombed in Iran for no other reason than to create a reaction to justify further violence. Over 150, I think over 160 innocent girls murdered by these sorts of people. Now, they might not believe it themselves, and they might be in the 7th or 8th hypothesis, but they do use these believers to justify it. Oh no, they were evil girls. They were devil girls. And God said we had to kill them. That's the only way they can justify such horrific injustice. So, we're getting it in plain English. Our God is necessary to overcome the power of evil that is spawned by the evil one, Satan.
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
Sorry.
Look at this broad.
Socrates. Then God and Satan are not only opposites, but distinct and separate from each other, and having the power to do and be what they do. Do you also say that to contemplate evil or to act in an evil way is to act irrationally and in a totally unintelligent way? So it sounds like Socrates is taking on this sick belief of the existence of evil or Satan, and he's going to help Jesus reason through why it's absurd. But look at this. Opposites. Can't highlight. Okay. Opposites, distinct, separate. Having a power to be and do what they do. This can help us understand more about the seventh hypothesis, people. Because we're saying the seventh hypothesis is a way of being in opposition to the Logos. So, there isn't, well, they're not opposite functions. The true nature of reality is there is a higher force of self and mind that communicates to us through understanding to benefit us. That's the truth. That's why we can learn. That's why philosophy exists. That's etc. etc. Seventh hypothesis says there is some sort of power and functioning. There is some sort of activity of mind, some power and activity of mind, but it's not a greater and lesser like we have in our model here. It's a opposites. Good and evil, hot and cold, Satan and God. And as there is a kind of connection from the whole to the parts, this is disconnection. So there's a disconnection. It's a rejection of Logos. So one thing you could do is you could have a lightning bolt as a symbol. How did lightning look like this? Lightning bolt to symbolize the seventh hypothesis. Distinct, no connection between good and evil. Conflict, separate, distinct, opposites in conflict. A root kind of thinking behind the Abrahamic religions. Justifying punishment or abusing people because I'm teaching you a lesson. You did your math homework right? Wrong? It's not because you need to move from false belief to understanding. It's because you're a naughty kid and now I get to punish you, says sadists. Give people $1 billion, they become Epstein class. Torturing and abusing people to play out the fantasy of the seventh hypothesis. I am the good guy because look at me abusing you, evil child. Torturing and raping you to death. Pretty sick, but this is why we learn to understand the nature of that mindset and how it's venerated in the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So beliefs are not neutral. People who say, well, if you're a nice Christian, it's all well and good. Fuck off. Grow up. There is no nice way of treating people as though there's good and evil and you are justified in torturing them to death. Oh no, but they don't preach it, don't they? They'll support others who do it. Give them power over others, they'll do it. Give them power over their children, they'll do it. Telling the truth is important if we want to overcome the nature of human ignorance and problems. So we can personify, we can symbolize the seventh hypothesis with a lightning bolt. Division, equal and opposite forces, disconnection, conflict. Just as we could, if eighth hypothesis is the physical world, it accepts there being parts, but there's no whole, we could draw a rock. Materialism. Reductionism, we're all just rocks in space. Nihilism, there's not even a rock, so we could do a Ghostbusters symbol with a rock. Second hypothesis, you can do the yin-yang symbol because that's the highest, that's the experience of Taoism. They think the second hypothesis is the highest. Belief we could do with the fourth, so we could do three big religions. Fourth hypothesis, belief. Fifth hypothesis, an angry scholar, maybe. Those are the ones that function to reject mind and self, while believers function to imitate mind in the physical world. So you can have fun drawing symbols to represent these. But this is interesting because Socrates has just given us a fantastic description of what the seventh hypothesis is like. And now he's attempting to address that sick belief. Would you say that contemplating evil, or to act in an evil way, is irrational? Is to act irrationally and in a totally unintelligible way? Like, why would you contemplate the evil? Why would you do bad things, considering it does harm to yourself and others, our species? Indeed, says Jesus, to sin or to miss the mark you are aiming for. Notice the actual definition of sin is amartia, to miss the mark. It's not being naughty by fundamental nature. By the way, sexism, racism, those are all expressions of this sick belief. You are innately evil because you're a woman, because you're brown, because you're an immigrant, because you're a leftist. This is the effects of allowing religion to exist, or veneration of the seventh hypothesis to exist. It causes genocide, slavery, and subjugation of women, torture and murder and all sorts of terrible things. Beliefs are not neutral. Now, this particular person might not be abusing their kids right now. Hitler might not be murdering millions of people right now as he has his lunch. Oh, he's a nice person. You can be a nice Nazi. Look at him eating his lunch. Look at that Christian not actively doing a genocide right now, or not teaching their children that their sin exists and evil exists and women are less than men and all this shit. It's not neutral. These beliefs have a force in our lives. We act through our beliefs. You might not have power over others right now. Who's to say tomorrow you might not have kids? Or you might become a boss of a company, or you might become president. No neutral ground. You're either doing the logos or pathologos, justice or injustice. Isn't that interesting? Like the establishment Democrats, doing nothing while fascism is murdering people en masse. That's not neutral. That's supporting them. Let's keep reading. To sin or miss the mark you're aiming for is to act irrationally and against one's own spiritual goal. There you go. It's very, very important that we even address the ignorance of human ignorance. Not just belief, fourth hypothesis, but also fifth hypothesis. Those that say there is no spiritual goal. There is no universal principles. Establishment Democrats, as we just mentioned. Atheism. That's not neutral. If there is no spiritual principle, who's to say what's right and wrong? Why is murdering people bad? It's because it functions in opposition to the standard of goodness and truth. They're your own spiritual goals and the spiritual goals of humanity. We're not just physical things. Atheists, materialists. You can't treat women like objects or like slaves. Slaves is treating people like objects to be owned. Ignorance, cause of our problems. Wisdom, cause of our excellence in the solution of way of solving problems. So important to remind ourselves that philosophy or bust, baby. All right, so to miss the mark you're aiming for is to act irrationally and against your own spiritual goals. How are we for time? Got a little bit more time. Singular. The good does not share its attributes with evil because they are different as they are opposites, says Jesus. Do we share in the truth that for a God to be a God, he must be and remain in a perfect state? What's he doing? Defining the term. And in being in a perfect state, such that goodness would be the essential mark of a God. And is not, sorry. So, for God to be a God, he must be and remain in a perfect state, and is not being in a perfect state, such that goodness would be the essential mark. Yes, you have said it rightly. We drink from the same cup and praise the same God. Then we both say that God abides eternally in his own state. What's with the highlighting on this page? And in doing so preserves his nature. If so, then would you agree that since his nature is good, he will utter no falsehoods? Nor would he behave in an evil way. Hold for a second. All right, so his nature is good and he preserves his nature by eternally abiding in his own state. So he would utter no falsehood, so he wouldn't lie, and he wouldn't behave in an evil way. Yes, says Jesus. The God over all heaven and earth has a nature of unfathomable goodness. Then would such a God be at war, if war is the abandonment of the intelligible? Notice, what do warmongers of our current age do? They justify their war because it's part of the reality. Just God is that way. Right? Didn't you learn about God killing people in Sunday school? That's human nature, etc., etc. No, war is the abandonment of the intelligible, and it's the intelligible that makes us just, rational, sane. War is in principle anti-human. It can only be justified with this kind of sick way of thinking. There is an evil force, you can't reason with it, you can't address the root causes of evil, it's a supernatural thing, so we can't, address the causes of crime because usually it's wealth inequality. 95% of crime is just based on wealth inequality. That's it. Now, the people who profit from a prison system or a military industrial complex want us to not solve problems and just believe, oh no, that those guys over there are evil. And then tomorrow those guys are evil. And then the next day those guys are evil. Hey, welcome, Nitro. Seventh hypothesis, ignorance. Venerated in the Abrahamic religions. Justifying inhumanity, violence, oppression, war. And Socrates is going to work. Therefore, if such a god is at war, if a god is always good, doesn't lie or act in harmful or evil ways, then could it ever be at war if war is the abandonment of the intelligible? We say,
please end kink shaming on your show.
Get the fuck out.
To war. Say, get the fuck out to war. For you, the intelligible befriends the good, says Jesus, while for us it casts a deceptive shadow over all. Interesting. A fear of rationality. Haven't we seen that's the nature of human problems? A loyalty to your own ignorant false beliefs from childhood that you identify with, but a fear of understanding. So seventh hypothesis, people who want to kill those they don't like. Again, fourth hypothesis, belief, but also seventh hypothesis, functioning. The first people they go after are thinkers. People who are good, people who understand. So we see that even here in Jesus saying, no, the intelligible casts a deceptive shadow. Those clever people are trying to deceive you. However, must we not agree that Satan is, as the personification of evil, would lack the ability to plan and act intelligently towards any good he desires, because his actions cannot reflect what is good and intelligible. Could he even go ahead and marshal his forces and prepare for the coming battle between good and evil if his plans are irrational and so worthless? That's super important. If intelligibility and goodness are linked, because it's good to think well and plan well, it's good to plan. That's all intelligence. And if Satan is the personification of bad, he can't even think. He can't even plan. He can't be pure evil. So who are you blowing up? Good question. Yes. So proud is Satan, says Jesus, that he accepts moments of victory to satisfy his evil nature. What's he doing? He's trying to save his old beliefs. For what it is worth, if the end is known, to overcome those moments of victory. What is it worth if the end is known to overcome those moments of victory? For surely you would agree, Satan's battle plans and actions must fail if they lack intelligibility. What is it worth if the end is known? To overcome those moments of victory. What does that mean? What is it worth if the end is known? don't understand that sentence. Let's keep reading. Hey, wouldn't Satan's battle plans and actions fail if he lacks intelligibility? The depths of arrogance keep all from seeing the obvious. What the hell kind of answer is that? And if Satan was vanquished in such a way, would he not come to know, in good overcoming evil, that evil itself was annihilated and only good exists? The evil of Satan moves across the earth, leaving destruction and misery in its wake. Interesting, considering we've understood that when people who are believers, fourth hypothesis, gain positions of power in the world, then that's when death and destruction is swept across the land. So notice, Jesus is attributing to a supernatural, impossible force called evil as the cause of the things actually caused by believers. Belief. In particular, the veneration of your own personal false beliefs by saying God says so. The evil of Satan moves across the earth, leaving destruction and misery in its wake, and its constant victory over good gives ample proof of its existence. Ugh. That's stupid.
Look at this broad.
Look at this
Calm
broad.
your fucking tits.
He needs to calm his tits.
First you're saying the F word or whatever you said. Now the tone is completely out of control.
Sorry about my tone. Can what has been thoroughly defeated continue to exist? As long as the continuous war rages in the soul, it mirrors the cosmic war. If evil is only found in man, in his thoughts, in his deeds and thoughts, why not look for the cause where it springs up, rather than in a war between heaven and earth? You seek to end the war within mankind, and that leaves its source untouched. Where will evil play itself out if it finds no home in the soul of mankind? While truth is silent before the mysteries of man's existence, I can see why you say what you say. Notice, it's all cope. It's all cope. Point out, by definition, evil can't reason and plan if it's the personification of bad, because intelligibility is good, reasoning is good. If it has that, then he's not evil, he's got good in him. Oh no, sometimes he can be good. Really? Is that the devil? Sometimes good? Because if it doesn't have intelligibility, his plans would fail and be overcome by the forces of good. And if he was vanquished, then only good could exist. So, if there is an immortal battle between good and evil, and good has the ability to plan and reason, then sometime in the past, evil must have been vanquished. And then his response is, no, you can tell evil still exists because human beings do terrible things to each other in the world. Hang on a second, if evil has been defeated, because it must have been, because it doesn't have it, because it lacks the intelligibility, which is good, then how does it continue to exist? Oh, because it's reflected in the cosmic war, men killing each other forever and for always. All right. So if the only evidence of evil's existence is in the evil actions of human beings, why not just look for its cause in human beings? Why appeal to a cosmic force that you can't see, you've just inferred as a way of explaining man's injustice? And then Jesus' response is, well, you have to look for a supernatural force, good and evil, Satan and God. Because otherwise you leave the source of man's evil and injustice. Hey, welcome, Brave. To you we say,
cool as a cuke.
Today you seem very cool as a cuke because
My head is quite large,
because your head seems quite large and filled with secrets.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
A cutie pie. That's what you get today. Emma calling you a cutie pie. So, hey, it's not just a matter of looking for the sources of man's injustice within the soul of man, which we are doing by understanding that the cause of human problems is pathologos, false beliefs, that is venerated and justified by appeals to supernatural forces. Totally fits my description.
Spit on me.
Oh my goodness. Don't spit on Emma.
Get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out if you want to spit on Emma.
Oh man, that lady's certainly saying bad words.
Yes, that was a bad word, and we apologize.
All checks out.
And now we're cool.
Cool as a cuke.
Cool as a cuke. Hey, so if it's just in the soul of man, then why not look to the false beliefs men carry from childhood and fail to address because we don't teach dialectic and midwifery in schools, and we ignore our dreams? Why not address the problem? Because you can't just look at the soul of man because Jesus says you leave the source untouched. You can't seek the end of the war within mankind without addressing its source. Well, hang on a second. If there is no problem, or if mankind dies out, where will evil play itself out if it finds no home in the soul of mankind? In other words, where else are you looking? Where else does evil do evil, if not in the soul of mankind? Where does this mysterious extra term that you are imagining? In other words, by definition, evil can't exist as a supernatural intelligent force doing its scheming and planning, because intelligence, as we've seen, is good. Missing the mark, or sinning, would be not being able to reason in a way that reaches your goals. Evil is irrational and unintelligible, acting against your own spiritual goal. Hey, why would the devil seek to do these bad things that would harm its spiritual goal? And as such, good would have defeated evil, because evil can't plan. So by definition, evil can't exist the way it's defined. If it did exist, it would have lost the war and therefore wouldn't have existed. The only evidence for the existence of evil is human beings doing terrible things. Socrates says, well, okay then, why don't we just look at the psyche of man to understand why they do evil things? No, you can't do that, because you can't solve a problem without addressing its cause. Well, what are you going to look to if evil we can only see evidence of evil within the souls of man? Like, what are you pointing to as this imaginary extra cause? If evil is only found in man and in his thoughts and deeds, why not look for the cause where it springs up, rather than as some worldview between good and evil? You have to reach the source. Well, where will evil play out if there's no home within the soul? Where else will it play out? Jesus' answer: truth is silent before the mysteries of man's existence. This is something we saw very early on. Whatever level of development you're in, your problem often manifests when you say, Because I don't see it, no one can see it. In chat, it reminds me of the Jedi. Ooh. The midichlorians determine a Jedi strength. But what else can they determine? Density? Destiny? Our purpose? Cosmically, evil is not possible, but it is present within mankind. Says Star Wars, but not us. So, if you are the fifth hypothesis person, you think we can't know the nature of mind and self, then you've said, well, I don't know the nature of mind and self. I don't know the method. I haven't subscribed to this channel. Therefore, no one does. That's an irrational argument, an irrational way of thinking, but it's an indication of where you're at. When you say everyone thinks this way, everyone thinks that good and evil exists, everyone thinks we should invade Iran, everyone thinks women are less than men, or no one knows what happens when you die. Garbage. We're supposed to figure that out, you idiot. Where do you think you're going to go after you die? Don't know? We'll find out. No one can know that. Says who? Well, I don't know that. My daddy doesn't know that. My preacher doesn't know that. Therefore, no one knows that. It's ignorance. But everyone has their own cap. So if your eighth hypothesis, you think there's only the physical world, say no one can know anything more than physical chemicals. So every hypothesis, someone will be in saying no one knows what's beyond it. So here is Jesus being asked to engage in understanding the third hypothesis, and he's defending his fourth hypothesis beliefs and saying no one can understand the truth of man's existence. Garbage. Read the book we're reading. By the way, Jesus, you've been in the conversation. Hopefully you've understood the nature of man's problems. It's easy. This line. You only need two ideas, third and fourth hypothesis. Belief and understanding. That's it. Simple. All human problems are in these two things. To say no one can understand it or truth is silent before the mysteries of man's existence is garbage. You can expand it to say, hey, you can use understanding to understand all of these other expressions of false beliefs. You can use understanding to perfect your understanding and learn the art of the dialectic as our purpose or destiny as human beings. You can use that understanding to perfect your understanding by reflecting on its model, which prepares you to experience it. You could experience, therefore, mind itself, which is experiencing what happens when you die. So you can know what happens when you die. You're supposed to know what happens when you die. By the way, you're supposed to also apply understanding. See, it's all third hypothesis. It's all understanding to that experience to go beyond it to know the self. You can understand also by understanding this map how reality unfolds through reflection. You can understand all of these other positions that are in opposition. Seventh hypothesis says there is some sort of power or activity of mind, but it's a cosmic force between good and evil, rejecting the principles of the logos. Seventh hypothesis. Notice, if this position is the cause of human death and destruction to justify violence because you don't recognize that all human problems needs to be addressed with the dialectic, a movement from creating the conditions, your material needs met, you feel safe, you live in a safe world. Now you can honestly reflect with no fear of punishment for getting something wrong or missing the mark, not sinning, but missing the mark, so that you can reflect on your false beliefs, learn the dialectic in removing your own problems, therefore removing your own problems and developing a mastery of understanding that you can then use to go on to reach your highest excellence and help others. If that's what we are supposed to be doing, and the thing that opposes it and instead brings death and destruction across the world are these Abrahamic false beliefs that oppose understanding, seventh hypothesis, reality is a battleground internally and externally between good and evil. If that's the source of human injustice, then Jesus, by his own definition, is evil. If evil is only seen in the thoughts and deeds of mankind, and this is the specific cause of such evil deeds, Jesus is evil. Religious people, by their own definition, so long as they are faith-based or belief-based, and especially if they are in the seventh hypothesis, good and evil, good guys, bad guys, you either support invading Iran or you hate America, then that is the definition of evil, using their own terms. They are the evil they are supposedly fighting. Notice, Socrates isn't killing Jesus. In other words, you don't solve the problems of man's unjust thoughts and deeds, the cause of death and destruction, by playing into that very premise. Remember, when Jesus had his problem, we didn't yes and him, we know this. No, that's not the case. This is the case. We reject the premises and framing of the ignorant. It's not who do we kill, you fucking idiot. It's how do we understand the root false beliefs behind the desire to kill. That worldview, that idea of justice being the killer. Why do the billionaires want to kill people? Why do they want to murder these children in Epstein Island? What's the root cause behind the beliefs? Hey, welcome, Sus.
Cool as a cuke.
We reject the premises of the ignorance, or as Einstein said, you don't solve the problems caused by a certain mindset with that same mindset. So, isn't it ironic, don't you think, that the very definition of evil given by religious people is them? They are the evil ones. They are the cause of death and destruction in man's deeds, which is evidence for the source of evil, because they oppose actually addressing problems with third hypothesis understanding. But notice, we don't kill them. Well, more than scapegoats us, the definition of evil is some supernatural force that is the root cause of mankind's injustice towards mankind, their negative thoughts and deeds. That's how we see that evil exists, according to the text we're reading. Evil is the presumed cause. Now, we've seen that it can't exist. You can't have a purely... You addressing what's uncomfortable to my beliefs and makes me uncomfortable. Time to kill you. Exactly. I am wondering. That's how I am. How are you? So, if the source of evil is your living, is mankind's opposition to the third hypothesis, opposition to intelligibility, helping people, providence, then it's caused by the fourth hypothesis, belief, and seventh hypothesis, a rejection of logos to say that world is a battleground between the forces of good and evil. Meaning, those who think that world is a battleground between the forces of good and evil meet that definition of evil. Evil believers are evil by that definition. How are you? Wondering and curious, and also cool as a cuke.
Cool as a cuke.
Because
my head is quite large and filled with secrets.
My head is quite large and it's filled with secrets. and you are learning these secrets. But Socrates isn't doing what they do to evil, murdering them, as Abraham was instructed to murder his son. While they oppose understanding with the seventh, while they oppose mind and self with the fourth, we can still engage in understanding to help them reason through it. That's our job. Otherwise, you're just adding to the cycle of violence and harm. You are doing to others what was done unto you, imitating your own pathologos parental figures. So, yeah, it's fucked to do punishment. It's better to understand. We are learning how to do that. There is an art to it. There's an art to recognizing the state of mind of the person you're talking to. Are they open? Are they triggered? Are they in state A, open and curious, or state B, blocked, triggered? What is the nature of their block? What hypothesis are they on? Can we recognize interpretation? And can we navigate around that to hold them to the steps of reasoning that we call the dialectic? The dialectic, this should be repeatable. The steps of reasoning that Socrates is taking Jesus through, if they're true, are universal, will always be the case. I mean, whenever you find someone who believes in evil, you could practice going through these stages. Not to convince them, but to practice your own understanding, and maybe they can benefit as a result. I drank yesterday because the state of the world is fuckerino.
Can't you just engage with anything in a way that's like meaningful? Don't be disgusting.
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
I will show you some respect.
He's so far up his own ass.
It's fuckerino all the way to the knees and in just fucked up shit. What we are doing is attempting to understand why it's fucked up, not because of Satan, but because of unsuspected pathologos beliefs that function in opposition to our reason for being born. Now, while the schools are run by fourth hypothesis people, and the politics and the economy, and we're seeing, hey, while they're fourth hypothesis believers that oppose mind and self, one way they do that is seventh hypothesis, world is a battleground between good and bad. While we're not going to get it from them, we can still learn from Socrates and Pierre Grimes, people who have mastered the logos, experienced pure mind, and gone beyond to know the self. So while we can't find a way of solving human problems by listening to the ignorant, we can do it here. That's what we do here. How do we make the world less fucked? How do we, hey, even if the world doesn't become less fucked, how do we make our souls less fucked? How do we make our relationships less fucked? How do we prepare ourselves for our death so our next reincarnation is less fucked? Or our experience between lifetimes is less fucked? That's what we do here. So, if you're gonna drink and read philosophy. Or do dream analysis, even better. You can't do one without the other, really. Maybe evil, though cosmically irrational and impotent. No, we said there can't be an evil force. We just gone through that. By definition. There can't be an intelligent planning force that's in opposition to intelligence and planning. If there was, it would have lost the war billions of years ago. Irrational and impotent lies within men because mankind is small and cannot shake emotion. Well, what we've been reading is our problem is our loyalty to those kinds of beliefs. If you think, oh, my problems are just because of evil, then you won't go through the dialectic reflection on your actual problems to find the root beliefs you are carrying about yourself that manifest as your states of mind and your functioning. If you stay in the realm of belief, believing about good and evil and such, you won't move into the third hypothesis. Our purpose is to move from belief, pathologos, into mastery of understanding the logos. By the way, if you believe more strongly that you are too evil to master understanding, you will be blocked. That's why we also, not only do we have a map of our development of logos or understanding, we also are creating our own map of interpretation. When you hear this, do you accept this or do you reject it? Do you offer your alternative beliefs? Do you try and adapt what we're saying to fit your old beliefs about good and evil? Do you try and unify? Okay, maybe there's understanding, but there's also good and evil. Do you try to unify the both? So those are the interpretations that block us from our development. Semantics. I see unhealthy versus healthy. Well, logos versus pathologos is what we're reading from the book. Again, unless you've been reading the book along with me, you might not see it. Same difference, evil, bad. No. Well, we've just gone through a reasoning to say that evil is impossible. A cosmic force called evil that seeks to do harm and bad? How could it have that planning? Because wouldn't you say that planning towards a goal is... Let's go through the reasoning again. Everywhere you stepped, fucked up shit, so only much you can wait in sewer water before you die from diphtheria. Reset humanity already. Everyone do shrooms, experience ego death. What we're seeing is it's not a matter of experience, because Jesus has had an experience, but unless he's learnt to understand and uproot his deep-seated beliefs about reality, you will just make sense of your mushroom trip, your peak experience, second hypothesis, with your fourth hypothesis, beliefs you got from childhood. You might even start your own cult or religion based on your own insight, because you think you've reached the end. Socrates is asking Jesus to wonder about even the cause of that peak experience. And he's being triggered. He's retreating to his beliefs. It's always the logos. Learning to understand. How do you solve the problems of your toaster? Understand where the problem is and understand how to fix it. How do you understand the problems of your body? Go to a doctor who understands the health of your body and understands sickness. How do we apply it to the soul? Understanding our highest state of mind, our highest understanding, and the cause of our problems. The cause of our problems are our pathologos, false belief, and the understanding of the truth is the self-logos. That's what we've been learning through this book. If evil is cosmically impotent, then our shortcomings need to be rationalized moment to moment. Right, if there is such a thing as evil, which there can't be by definition, but even if it was, it would be impotent, because being able to have a power and planning and have an effect is a kind of goodness, which evil is in opposition to. So it can't be the cause of human problems. You have to look for another cause. Let's go through it with Socrates one more time. So, by the way, I think you, Jesus, have a religious view of God that's very current to our current times. That God, your idea of God is a kind of spiritual force that guides people through history. That's what God is. Affects people and their actions through history. The God I speak of is a creator God, a God of my people. Notice my people. We can already see that he's probably in his B state. He's referring to his team, his group. Our God is necessary to overcome the power of evil that is spawned by the evil one, Satan. Then God and Satan are not only opposites, but distinct and separate from one another, yet having the power to do and be what they do. To be and do what they do. Do you also say that to contemplate evil, or to act in an evil way, is to act irrationally and in a totally unintelligible way? So if there is a thing called Satan contemplating evil, that would be stupid, mindless, unintelligent. But also to act in that way would be irrational. So this magical Satan guy is irrational and unintelligent. Indeed, to sin, to do a bad thing, or miss the mark you actually want, your spiritual goal of reaching the good. If we all seek the good and Satan doesn't seek the good, he wants bad, he's fucking stupid. He's an idiot. To miss the mark you're aiming for, or to act irrationally and to sin means to miss the mark you're aiming for. And that is to act irrationally and against your own spiritual goal. The good, which is our spiritual goal, does not share its attributes with evil because they are different as they are opposites. Interesting, Jesus isn't picking it up. We're not saying they're opposites. We're saying one is higher up in its ability to participate in intelligence and rationality and reach its goals, and one is lower. Incompetent, irrational, unintelligible. But that's the seventh hypothesis, way of thinking, a rejection of the Logos. Socrates, do we share in the truth that for a God to be a God, it must remain in a perfect state, and is not being in a perfect state such that goodness would be the essential mark of a God? So if by definition God is in its perfect state, it's not in a developmental process, and that would be its goodness, then Satan can't be a spiritual God, spiritual force. Because it wouldn't have goodness because it's defined by being evil. It can't be a God. Yes, you have said it rightly. We drink from the same cup and praise the same God. Jesus isn't quite getting it yet, is he? Then we both say that God abides eternally in his own state, and in doing so preserves his own nature. If so, then would you agree that since his nature is good, he would utter no falsehoods, nor would he be active in an evil way? He wouldn't lie through his speech or through his actions. The God. Yes, the God over all heaven and earth has a nature of unfathomable goodness. Unfathomable.
You know what? Suck my dick.
Oh, calm down.
Jesus Christ, Emma.
Jesus Christ.
I've been a bad little girl.
Yes, maybe. Then would such a God be at war, if war is the abandonment of the intelligible? If you're rejecting intelligence to solve problems by hurting and killing people, would that be God? Would that be good? No. So not only can this idea of Satan not exist, because it couldn't be a God, because it wouldn't exist in its eternal state, having its own goodness, because that would be eternally abiding, would be a kind of goodness that Satan can't be because he's opposite of goodness. He would have to be irrational. to seek bad things if we all seek our good. It would be unintelligent to contemplate good evil and not contemplate the good. We're supposed to be contemplating the good. So not only can Satan not be a god or a spiritual figure by definition, so too God doesn't fit in this dynamic. If you think war is reality is a battleground between God and the devil, why the fuck would God be at war if he's perfect? And war is an abandonment of intelligibility. Act like a stupid fucking savage. So both Satan and God can't exist by this Abrahamic seventh hypothesis definition. Meaning, Jesus and Abrahamic religious people have been contemplating something wrong that has been used to justify their bad deeds. So, the God at war. So would such a God, a perfect God, be at war if war is the abandonment of the intelligible? And Jesus' response is, I fear intelligence. For you, intelligible befriends the good. For us, it casts a deceptive shadow. We are afraid. Hey, what do all parents and religious authorities teach you? And right-wing politicians teach you? And capitalists teach you? To fear your own thinking. Because if you think for 2 minutes, you won't allow for religion to exist. You'll see your parents aren't as knowing as they pretend to be. You'll see capitalists shouldn't be billionaires. And they shouldn't own all the fucking houses. They teach you that intelligence casts a deceptive shadow. Thinking is the devil. So, Socrates, so that was his response. Hey, Socrates, say, hey, can God be at war? If to be at war, you have to abandon the intelligible? Oh, well, maybe abandoning the intelligible is actually good. Maybe being irrational is actually good, maybe, because it's deceptive. Socrates, however, must we not agree that Satan, as the personification of evil, would lack the ability to plan and act intelligently towards any good he desires? Because his actions cannot reflect what is good or intelligible. Could he even go ahead and marshal his forces to prepare for the coming battle between good and evil if his plans are irrational and worthless? He'd be a shitty general. Well, actually, let me drink some copium here. So proud is Satan that he will accept moments of victory to satisfy his evil nature. So he will actually be good and do good things sometimes in service of the evil, actually. That's how proud he is. Garbage. Baby brain.
What the hell's wrong with you people? Sick freaks.
Sick freaks.
It's great because it's stupid, but it gets a lot of attention, mate.
That's true. It's stupid, but it gets a lot of attention from those who have been brainwashed by religious parents, even if they weren't fundamentalists, from childhood. So, Satan's battle plans and actions must fail. So, if they are eternal creatures, pre-existing humanity, being a crappy general, the war would have been lost billions of years ago. Why is it still happening in this moment in time? Jesus' copium, the depths of arrogance keep us from seeing the obvious. What the fuck does that mean? Is he calling Socrates arrogant? Oh, it's common sense, bro. It's obvious. Bad people are bad and naughty, and we have to kill them because good things, only a good person with a gun can shoot a bad person with the gun. So more guns, please. It's obvious. Good guys and bad guys. Kill the brown people. Brown people are bad. White people are good. It's obvious. And if you don't think so, if you think you know better than God, you're arrogant. That video of Kenneth Copeland when the reporter asks, hang on a second, you're stealing money from your parish to buy a second private jet? You're the devil for asking questions. You are arrogant to question the word of God that God wants me to be rich and go to Epstein Island. You're arrogant to question the billionaire class. Or the religious people who claim to speak for God and want all your money. So, it's not an answer. But it's the kind of answer you get. Once the logos disproves a belief that you're identified with, you're attached to, you think you need when you don't, you'll start attacking reason itself. What's the attacking of reasoning itself? Seventh hypothesis. Seventh hypothesis is defined by an opposition to logos. Therefore, if we just have shown that goodness is intelligent, you need to be a good general, you have to plan good. That requires good thinking. And believers oppose rationality. By their own definition, the evil ones are the religious people. They are the evil ones. The ones that oppose understanding, calling it arrogant or calling it deceptive. Thinking is bad. That's the force that opposes the good. If you're defining evil by the thing that humans have that opposes the good, that's you, bro. What a twist. Now, of course, that's not true. The reason why they're in this seventh hypothesis way of being is because of their fourth hypothesis, childhood beliefs they have yet to reflect on through philosophical midwifery. That's why philosophical midwifery is an absolutely necessary art. Socrates says the dialectic is necessary to reach the self. We can add to that, it's also necessary to remove your false idea of yourself. That's why you need both. And that's likely why, likely this conversation, while being correct, while having that great M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end, you're the evil ones, by showing that their idea of God in the seventh hypothesis can't exist, their idea of evil can't exist, it's not going to work.
People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
Because they stupid their way into the stupid position. They're not going to logic their way out.
There's only two options at the end of an argument. No, you're not. Personality maxing requires, where's the joy? Imagine people changing their positions. The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
I finally got there. You can't reason yourself out of that position, therefore you need midwifery. But reasoning is a good start. Hopefully, when Jesus reflects on this conversation with Socrates, well, gee, you showed that my idea of God can't exist, that idea of evil can't exist. Doesn't make sense. I still believe it though. That should be a wake-up call. And if he has good friends or a good partner in his life, they will function to say, hey, by the way, you realize you came to a rational conclusion and yet you rejected it. That's evidence of a pathologos. Maybe you need to do some reflection. You can't logic your way out of that illogical position, otherwise it would have changed your mind. Therefore, you need to find who you are still believing from childhood. Therefore, that reflection on our false beliefs from childhood that we identify with that cause this kind of functioning is actually how you overcome the fucked nature of humanity or our world currently. It's not by killing them in the name of God. It's by reasoned reflection, logos and ousia, on our pathologos, our imitation of the self logos, false beliefs of self from childhood, that are a problem because it blocks third hypothesis reasoning. It's that third hypothesis reasoning you need to reach your actual spiritual goal of the experience of the good, and to reflect on that to move to the self. By definition, Hermes, the dialectic, anything that blocks your Apollo reading, your Aphrodite experiences or states of mind that reflect your reading, and your Hermes art of dialectic is the block, is the ignorance, is the cause of human problems. Let's see where it goes. So hey, the battle would have ended millennia ago because Satan's battle plans would have lacked intelligibility, because that's good, and he's the personification of not good, bad. So good would have won already. Jesus' response: "You are arrogant. The depths of arrogance keep you from seeing the obvious." Socrates is not buying into that bullshit. He's rejecting that premise. What's the premise? Fight me, bro. What do believers do when they get stuck? They reject reason and intelligibility, and they say, fight me, bro. Or gang up. Look at all of us Christians, we're gonna get you. Look at us Jews, we can tell because we all dress the same way. Look at all of us Muslims, you can tell because we're all together and we're gonna kill you. Holy war time. Or beat you up, or etc. Which is the very cause of human death and destruction. What they said was the evidence of evil. Isn't that ironic, don't you think? But Socrates is rejecting that premise. Fight me, bro. He keeps going. And if Satan was vanquished in such a way, would he not come to know, in good overcoming evil, that evil itself was annihilated and only good exists? So the end of that war would be the end of evil, and then even Satan, if he's a god, would know that only good exists. The evil of Satan moves across the earth, leaving destruction and misery in its wake. Notice, Jesus is in his B state, blocked state, belief state. He's rejected the reasoning and is just stating an old belief he already has. That's called interpretation. Jesus just, by the way, he said, hey, I've just recognized that interpretation is simply the rejection of the logos and the introduction of your pathologos false beliefs about self and reality. He just said it, but that's not enough to stop him doing it. That's why you need midwifery and philosophy. He's doing it. How do we know he's doing it? He's just rejected the dialectical method. He's just rejected the reasoning. He's just rejected the conclusions to appeal to his own beliefs as facts. The things that he already carries. He's in his interpretation, the definition and cause of interpretation. The B state of mind, so the pathologos idea of self, definition, demonstration, B state of mind, division, appealing to beliefs, taking over the conversations, rejecting the conclusions, rejecting understanding, saying, hey, just fight me, bro. Conclusion, division, and conflict. That's the hey, fight me, bro. That's how it ends. Death and destruction. By the way, it's that conclusion of human interpretation from our pathologos that they are saying is evidence of this supernatural force called evil. And Socrates is saying we don't need some supernatural force that can't exist definitionally. If it did, it would have lost already. And the God it was at war with wouldn't have been at war with it to begin with. We don't need this irrational, insane story, because that thing that you are saying points to the existence of evil is actually actually explained in this map here. We've already got an explanation that's rational and fits and explains all division and conflict and is solvable in principle. We don't need another one, especially that crappy one. By the way, that other explanation of the cause of division and conflict is the thing that causes that division and conflict. So not only is it an unnecessary model and an irrational model, it's a model that's actively harmful and causing the thing you're trying to remove. It's like fucking for virginity. Or what do religious people and seventh hypothesis people say? We need to start a war for peace. You can't explain human division and conflict with good and evil as a way of trying to address the source of human division and conflict. Because it's the cause! You idiot.
It's sad. And I'm sad for you.
I'm sad for you.
She's a moron. She's a bunk on the head individual. BHI.
I coined that.
They're completely lying. They're completely lying.
Oh man, that lady's certainly saying bad words.
I've been a bad little girl.
Well, that's not true because I don't
think so.
Isn't this interesting? So, what do you call that? Aura maker? Smell disperser has just turned off. I need more essential oils to make my room smell nice. Okay, so if Satan was vanquished, he would have himself realized he's not bad anymore because good would have won and only good exists. Socrates, Jesus' response, oh no, evil of Satan moves across the... It's rejecting everything we just said. No, the evil of Satan moves across the earth, leaving destruction and misery in its wake. And its constant victory over good gives ample proof of its existence. So rejecting everything we've just said and just starting a new argument. No, forget everything about that. I think this because bad things happen. Look, a bad guy won. The capitalists, the conservatives, the religious authorities, all of the pathologos-based group people. They're still doing bad shit. Therefore, evidence. But Socrates rejects that tangent and goes back to the reasoning that they've just gone through. Can what has been thoroughly defeated continue to exist? See? Socrates says that evil was defeated. Jesus tried to pull a look over here. Socrates is back. Can what has been thoroughly defeated continue to exist? Now, what are we seeing? We are seeing the culmination of everything we've been learning in this text. Reasoning, logos, courage, virtue, understanding the nature of the pathologos, understanding the nature of the map of logos, understanding interpretation, all the work we've done in our reading to create these maps of how interpretation function, a dialectical understanding of human blocks. Everything we've been learning about the meaning of life being the dialectic, how you benefit souls as the dialectic, how you solve human problems as the dialectic. All of this, 160 episodes leading to this conversation. And Jesus is throwing everything at us. He's ignoring what we're saying. He's throwing his things. He's calling us arrogant. He's saying, well, here's another argument. He's going on tangents. But Socrates is seeing it. He sees it. He anticipated it. He expected it. He's keeping his cool. He's following the logos, even though this stuff is happening. Courage. He's being ruled by the logos and not this other shit. Wisdom. He's in his flow state. Justice. All of this stuff is coming together to defeat evil. We are defeating evil. Not by literally defeating evil. Remember, literalism is the cause of our problems, our barbarism. By defeating evil as the sick idea that informs human savagery, death, destruction across the world. If you think life is a battleground between good and evil, you are rejecting the Logos, seventh hypothesis. We wouldn't have seen that unless we have this map. If we hadn't read everything we've read, we wouldn't see the significance of the Logos. Therefore, if Logos is the solution to all our problems, if it's our spiritual development, if it's our learning, then the state of being that rejects it would be the particular fourth hypothesis belief we most need to address as human beings. Everything Socrates has built up is coming. This is the fight against Thanos. This is the fifth episode or fifth Marvel movie where we're fighting Thanos. We are defeating evil. We're not defeating it literally by punching Satan in the nose. We're defeating it by recognizing it's the root false belief that's been used to justify punishment, savagery, unintelligent action, death and destruction, the idea of evil. All of the training is for this big fight against Frieza. Or whatever the anime is you like to think about. This is the slaying of the dragon. The dragon is the idea of evil, infecting human society, infecting our minds, infecting our movies, our media, affecting our justice system, where we punish evildoers by torturing them in prison. We punish the bad people. Oh, they're homeless not because of the ignorance in our pathologos and the systems that are run by those people. No, it's because homeless people are bad and need to be killed. Put in concentration. It's the bad immigrants are evil. Concentration camps. Non-Christians are evil. It's this idea of evil that is used to justify the death and destruction inflicted on the world. That's the seventh hypothesis. This is the significance of this conversation. If we can master it, not just master it, but recognize how to play the game properly, how to, game sort of diminishes it a little bit, but it is a game in a good sense. Use the art properly to avoid the counterattacks, to recognize them, to not buy into the bullshit, not buy into the fight me bro, not buy into the tangents, and stay true to the Logos and reasoning as best we can. Then we can repeat this dialogue with any person, anywhere, in any species, in any time, any political figure, any religious figure, and show that this idea of evil is inaccurate, false, wrong, sick, and maybe even the cause of all of our mass human murder across our history. Ironically, this false idea of God that it's some historical figure playing out this, what do you say, it's a historical God guiding history, kind of is true, but it's in the negative sense. This sick idea of God as someone who would fight Satan is the thing that has been motivating history and, well, recent human history, justifying the death and destruction and injustice. We're at war with Satan as the sick idea that justifies unjust functioning. Amazing, hey? So for all of those who have been following along, maybe all of the work we've been doing leading up to this point, maybe it's paying off. So, Jesus said, oh, well, forget about what you said about it having been annihilated already. Here's another evidence of evil. Fuck you. We're staying on track. Can what has been thoroughly defeated continue to exist? Again, Jesus ignores it. He's fighting for evil, ironically, as an idea. As long as the continuous war rages in the soul, we've already seen that our internal conflict is solved through the dialectic midwifery, philosophy, and dream analysis. We've already seen how to end that conflict. We've already seen the nature of our conflict belief. So long as it continues to rage in the soul, it mirrors the cosmic war. So is he answering the question? No, he's not answering the question. He's jumped out of the dialectic. Socrates continues. If evil is only found in man, if that's what you're taking as the evidence of evil, despite what we've just reasoned, if then it's only found in man, in his deeds and thoughts, why not look for the cause where it actually springs up, rather in this make-believe war between heaven and earth? Jesus' response, you seek to end the war within mankind, and that leaves its source untouched. Well, where will evil play itself out if it finds no home in the soul of mankind? In other words, if the only thing that's evidence of evil is the conflict within the soul of man, why not address the conflict in the soul of man? Because you won't address the source. Well, then if it doesn't have a place to live, where will you find evil? So if we've addressed the conflict within our soul, there's no home for evil. We've defeated evil. So even his tangent explanation or justification for his belief in evil falls down. What is Jesus' response? While truth is silent before the mysteries, hey, the mind of God is a mystery. This is all you can't know anything bullshit. Anyone who is stuck in their ignorance says you can't know. Whether it's materialists saying you can't know the meaning of life, the nature of reality, our purpose as human beings, what happens when you die, the nature of our reincarnation, the nature of beauty itself, or whoever it is. Democrats saying you can't know the principles of what needs to be a politician. When you say that because I don't know it, no one knows it, you are in your B state. You're blocked. You've got work to do, son. Truth is silent before the mysteries of man's existence. So Jesus is rejecting truth itself. I can see why you say what you say. Oh no, I get you. You're just wrong, but I understand you and I understand that you're wrong. Kind of a dickish thing to say, right? Socrates says to that, our mysteries reveal truth. Yours conceal it with piety.
Look at this broad.
Look at this broad.
Oh man, that lady's certainly saying bad words.
Oh,
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
she is, but justified.
You just attacked my person.
Please end kink shame.
That's insane. Like, you need help. There's no help, actually. You need a straitjacket.
Our mysteries reveal truth. Yours conceal it with piety. He is standing up. He's saying, okay, no. You've gone all the way through the dialectic, rejecting it at every turn. Now you reject truth. Bollocks. Bollocks. That premise that you can't understand the nature of our existence is bullshit. We've been learning that that's what the dialectic does. That's what our purpose is. You are the one concealing it because of your beliefs and your justification of your ignorance, your pathologos belief ignorance, through piety. What do we say? Don't talk about religion or politics at the table. Just let the Epstein billionaire class murder children and kill the world. Don't talk about it. Be polite. Piety. Appeal to religious belief as though it means anything other than ignorance. That's the thing that conceals truth. Not our mysteries of philosophy, the dialectic. We've disproven the religious idea of God as someone who could be at war with evil, because that wouldn't be a perfect state. That wouldn't be an intelligent way of solving problems. We've disproved the idea of Satan as some spiritual force, because of course, he wouldn't be in its perfect, he wouldn't have the goodness of its own form, its perfection as a god. Also, it wouldn't be seeking evil if that is irrational. It wouldn't be contemplating evil if that is unintelligible. So by definition, it can't exist as a god or a spiritual force. If it did hypothetically exist, it would have lost the war millennia ago because it wouldn't have been able to marshal even its troops, because that's a kind of goodness or intelligibility that it would lack. The only justification for the existence of evil is human beings doing bad thoughts and bad deeds. If so, why not look for the cause within the soul of man? Justification for that is, oh no, but you're not addressing the source. Well, hang on a second. If we solved it within the source, within the soul of man, where else would it go? So we have defeated it, because it wouldn't have anywhere else to live. If the evidence for the existence of evil is only the conflict within the soul of man, and we address the conflict within the soul of man, which we can do and we're supposed to do with the dialectic and midwifery, then we've won. The rejection of that is truth itself is bad. You can't know truth, it's a mystery. And Socrates' response, no. You hide truth behind belief and piety. Piety. Appeal to my beliefs are sacred because God. Bull fucking shit. Ironically, if evil is that which opposes the good, and the good we reach through understanding, then anything that opposes understanding is, by your definition, evil. And what opposes understanding? Seventh hypothesis, the idea of good and evil, and fourth hypothesis and fifth hypothesis, personal pathologos beliefs and a rejection of the principles of logos. Human ignorance, fourth and fifth, that opposes wisdom, would by this definition be evil. Therefore, if you want to defeat evil, defeat your sick idea in the existence of evil. Isn't that ironic? Because that opposes understanding, as does the seventh hypothesis worldview. Because goodness is intelligibility, that's the third. Therefore, once again, proven for the 743rd time that our purpose in life is to master third hypothesis understanding, master the art of dialectic. We've just demonstrated that it's only in this way can we remove the cause of death and destruction in our world, by addressing our fourth hypothesis, ignorance, our deity, our piety, our loyalty to our beliefs that we grew up with and deify with religion. And also we've seen that we need it to actually contemplate the actual intelligence, that's good. Second, and also need it to go to examine that peak experience, to reflect on its cause, to reach our purpose, destiny, our highest goal. Destiny for everyone, destiny of mankind it's called. So once again proven, it's all about the third baby. Our purpose, therefore, once again, to move from pathologos to logos. And one of the greatest ways we can defeat human ignorance, death, and destruction is this very conversation, using the art of the dialectic to navigate all of the slings and arrows and tangents and fight me bro distractions of believers to defend their seventh hypothesis, belief in good and evil. Because that's what opposes the good. Socrates is demonstrating perhaps the highest activity of a true human hero in this conversation. Now, you can follow it, but it might not stick because
people don't logic their way into stupid positions. People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
Because this idea of good and evil, human beings are just evil, etc., we can't solve problems until we blow up the world, all that shit, isn't true, meaning you can't have learnt it through reason. You stupided your way into this position. Meaning, even though you've followed the steps of reasoning, and even if you've read all the way through this book to develop all of the skills and ability to see the significance of this conversation, it might not still stick. You can therefore see for yourself the need for midwifery. You will still feel like it's good and evil, feel like the devil is real, feel like we can't solve our problems with simple understanding. Even though rationally you've been shown that it's true.
Imagine people. The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
You didn't reason yourself into this position. Therefore, not only do you need the dialectic to surface that realization that it's not sticking, you need the dialectic applied to solving problems. Therefore, two aspects of the single art. And hopefully you've just felt it. You've just felt it. But I still feel like devil and God exists. I still feel like we can never solve problems. I still feel like there's always going to be a conflict within the soul of man or my soul. Hopefully you've felt it and you've just demonstrated to yourself why we've been seeing over and over again. The dialectic has its two functions: to move up the logos and to address the pathologos. As we've been seeing, the hypotheses of Parmenides represents our movement through the logos, but our hypotheses of interpretation, the thing that we need to do to complete the work, Socrates said today, is also needed because the pathologos, belief in literalism, functions in opposition to the logos understanding and analogy, use of analogy. So, two things we have to address: logos and pathologos. Two uses of the dialectic to do it. What we just saw was a dialectic on the logos, but if it doesn't stick, as it might not stick for Jesus, we see the necessity for midwifery. So maybe we can do a sequel to this book, Socrates and Jesus, a midwifery talk in heaven. If he still is loyal to this idea of God as some historical figure that fights against evil, and the idea of Satan existing, and the idea of the nature of conflict is evil. The better you can master this map that you can make, the better you can write that sequel. Isn't that fascinating? It turns out the call was coming from inside the house the whole time. It turned out that the people fighting against evil was the evil ones to begin with. So therefore, maybe you can see what it's like to go through the midwifery on your own. False beliefs, if this dialogue didn't work, you still feel like evil is true. And you can use your own experience with your friends and loved ones of doing midwifery and dream analysis to surface those unsuspected false beliefs you don't even know you carry. You can use that experience to inform your sequel that you might write to contribute to humanity in this kind of a way. Socrates and Jesus, a midwifery talk in heaven. It's not philosophy that hides truth, it's belief. Wow, what a conclusion.
Cool is honestly on the real. I say stuff like that because I'm cool.
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
And I would scoop the moon in the cup for all of you who have been following along up until now. Isn't that amazing? Has it blown your mind? Are you as blown as me? I'm blown. Not in a gooner sense.
Queen of gooning.
Queen of gooning?
Look at this broad.
Broad as queen of gooning?
Gooner.
But in a mind-blown sense. Fun, 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 fun. By the way, if it's a dialectic, it's repeatable. Master those steps with your friends. Then anyone you meet who believes in evil, you could have this conversation with. What kind of a world would that be? Purifying this sick belief that opposes understanding. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're excited. Donate to the channel if you can. Link below. Join the Discord if you want to. follow along on Twitch and YouTube, and I will see you in the next one.